Heavenly Father, thank you for this morning. We thank you for the gift of life. We thank you for your faithfulness and your loving kindness. We thank you for your mighty hand on our lives. We thank you for your faithfulness. Thank you for walking the journey of business with us. And we still trust you that you continue to walk with us in this journey of business. As I come to share today, oh Lord, use me as a vessel to bless us. Help us implement the things that we're going to learn. But above all, speak through me to bless all of us. We welcome you, we bless you. In Jesus' name we pray and believe. Amen.
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 Fantastic. So let me start at it. I'm going to share a topic that I've learned from one of the books by T.D. Jakes, and I've learned a lot from it. I've had exposure to situations where a husband is very, very successful, and up there, especially in the political arena, and yet the wife is at a different level, like doing well, yes, but at a different level. And the other way around, you find the wife is up there, and yet the husband is in a different discipline altogether. I share an example of our current vice president. We had scenarios. We were at a certain engagement where she was a guest of honor, and they introduced her, and the husband was a bit forgotten and then recollected and introduced later. So it looked a bit out of place and not as good. So such scenarios arise, especially when we've gone through a number of stages, because in business or corporate life, we go through, I can define them in 4 stages. The first stage is the launching stage. The launching stage is a stage at which, you've just completed campus, you're just starting yourself, or you just got a job. So there's a lot of support that you get from colleagues. There's a lot of support, much support that you get from family. Family could be your spouse, family could be your siblings, family could be your close relatives. That is a launching stage. So at the launching stage, a number of hands come in to support us, even in business. This launching space or stage is where the mentors come in, your people who coach you, the guys that you learn from. So it is a very, very critical stage and very determinant of how far we can traject our lives or our careers in the corporate life or even in business. So it's important to take note of people who actually give a huge hand at the launching stage. Because as they are launching you, just like you launch a rocket, or just like you're launching off, when the plane is taking off, it is important that you keep critical, or you keep notes of people who play a big role, especially family, in your takeoff. So that is the launching stage. Stage number 2 is the layover stage. Layover stage is when you've gained some bit of experience. If it's business, it's stabilizing. You're making some bit of returns. You're making some profits. You're progressing somehow. You're making some money. Layover stage. And it's at this stage that some of the people that launched you start to get off the rail. Very unfortunate. It could happen knowingly or unknowingly, but truth be told is that at the layover stage, some people get off, even when you've not sent them away, but they still get off. So you have to be ready for such a stage, but also know that there are some key people that participated in your launch that must not off board. Must not off board. The third stage is the in-flight success stage. So now at this stage is when you've actually soared. If it is in your career, you're almost at the peak of your career. You're perhaps a CEO. If it's your business, you're perhaps turning over $1 billion shillings a month or something. You basically have gone to another level and almost a peak. And at this peak, the friends tend to change. The people that you associate with tend to change. And it is at this peak that a lot of things happen. This is when money starts to reveal who you actually are. This is when a few characters come through. This is when a few behaviors come through. It is at this stage that you can even risk losing your family. So I want to share with us 4 things that we may need to look at, especially when we attain the in-flight stage. Because at the in-flight success stage, from that stage, you're actually going to be landing. And landing is when you're actually retiring. Perhaps the people you're associating with in your circles, the corporate life, you no longer associate with them if you've been formerly employed. You now do not work for that institution, and now you start a new life altogether. You're basically landing. You're probably 70 or 60, and yeah, you're preparing to land. So a few things, 4 things I want to share with us that we may need to take care of or keep at heart as we progress in those 4 stages, especially in preparation for our landing stage. Number 1, or key to note, is that if you are to succeed without losing people who are most important to you along the way, there are a few suggestions which I'm going to share below that will keep you gaining one-on-one so that you don't lose the key people on your end. So suggestion number 1 is introduce your flight crew. If you've attended some band, I sometimes like jazz band. If you've attended some band, the key player of the band introduces the teammates, even if he's a pro, but you've always noticed how he introduces the teammates, because they all contribute. If I play guitar very well, I cannot run a band alone. If I sing maybe out of very well, I might not sustain the band alone. So I need a cohesive force of all the players for the band to be beautiful. So you've seen how they introduce, the team leader introduces the band in their different roles and capacities. So it's important that we introduce, in this case, since we've just come from Valentine's, I'll tailor it most to family, because at the end of the day, when you're landing, it is family that comes first. This is when, if you've been working from 8 to 5, now you actually have to spend a number of hours with your family. So you may choose to watch Al Jazeera, you watch those high-end news, and yet because you're not locked to your family, you don't have any conversation, they don't know what you've been doing, they don't really know as much. So it's important that at launching stage through to the in-flight success stage, we keep introducing our loved ones or our close family people to what we actually do. Before anyone gets a chance to evaluate your spouse or tell your coworkers how, you need to tell your coworkers how this person is or has been helpful to get to the level you're at. Because much of the time, you get to the level you attain because of the support or the love that these people actually are called to you. If you had a chance, you could have heard a story of our, is it a judge? Catherine Bamgemereye. She was at first a housewife, and she had first tend the children to a particular age and then start the corporate life. So you can imagine the support she got from the husband and the family. So it's important that before anyone overthinks your family, or before anyone overthinks your wife or your husband, you actually get to introduce them and highlight the support that they have contributed to the level you've attained. This is a very, very critical thing, because in this way, you can actually turn the misery into victory by introducing your band. In this case, could be your wife or your husband. So introduce your flight crew. Point number 1. It could be corporate gatherings. It could be, a few enjoyments that you have with your corporate colleagues or business leaders, but let that pass across that. If it so happens that you're in an engagement and you're with your spouse, they can easily blend in the conversation with the co-workers or fellow business leaders. Point number 2, Bring the people you love with you. You always have a choice to bring them or leave them. Always interest them, including them in the conversations, even at home, helps them to feel connected to your world. Because it's until you love what I do that they actually come to know that you actually love me. Have you had someone, I've had opportunities in some discussions, especially business networking opportunities. And when you actually open up for networking, everyone is fronting his own thing. But one logical thing that I read about and I really found so profound is taking interest in people's businesses. Actually, before you front yours, like, ask us, so tell me, what do you do? So how do you do it? So what do you intend to do in 3-5 years from now? Where do you project yourself? Just taking interest in someone's business or work gives you much more clout than even fronting what it is that you're trading. So it's the same logic that works here. So it's important that you bring the people on board that you love, so that they can help so they can understand what it is that you go through, that you actually do, and connect with you and connect with your world. Because then they will come to like what you actually do, appreciate what you go through. Because if I wake up every day at 5 and leave for work and come at 10, my people need to understand what it is that I go through, or even pray with me, so that if I am employed, I can actually start something or get another job that gives me flexibility to be with family. So it gives them prayer points as well. So it's important, but if you don't bring them on board, they might not understand what it is that you go through, what it is that you do, and then they might not be able to connect with you at an emotional level, but also with you at the kind of things that you actually go through, the empathetic situation that they need to stand with you, so that if I wake up at 4 and come at 10, they will know that, ultimately, this guy is after providing for us, is after our doing well, is after our good. So we need to love him. We need to accord him more time. We actually need, you've seen families where I say, if dad is studying, they actually even keep quiet, they even switch off TV, even when you've not told them, because they are supporting you to achieve what it is that you intend to achieve, just because you brought them on board and you've told them what it is that you're actually going through. This will even sustain the conversations as you engage. It gives them the basic knowledge of what it is that you do, that even when they are exposed to the environment where you have your corporate friends or your colleagues, they can actually contribute. I've had scenarios where actually the wife relays the conversation very, very well in some aspects, and believably well, as if she was actually working in that institution. So the role was played by the husband to bring them on board, and then they could actually ably understand what it is that she was going through. Point number 3, keep the main thing the main thing. It's very easy to turn your family into extras, very, very easily, because of the level of success that you have attained. It is very easy to turn your family into extras. And it's until you're actually conscious, intentional, and careful that you can keep the trend or keep the family in its own position. Your job or ministry can become more important than family, yet you're actually working hard to build the house, to build your family. So work is just a tool that you're working with to actually build your family. So it's important that you keep your family, or you keep the main thing the main thing. Very, very key. So you have to establish continually that the world that you have at work is not the real world, because ultimately, when the landing stage comes, you actually fall back to the family. So that's point number 3. So it's important that you keep the main thing the main thing. Keep family at the helm of everything, because at the landing stage, ultimately, you're actually working for the family and you will come back to family. The last point, is dignify others with your attention. Invest some energy in the interests of the people in your home life. That whereas you want them to interest themselves in your things that you actually do, in your work that you undertake, it's also important that you invest some energy to interest yourself in their aspirations, in their interests, because then you can actually ably connect with them at not only at a physical level, but also at an emotional level. You need to interest yourself in your children's work. You need to interest yourself in your wife's or spouse's needs, so that you can actually relate with them in all aspects. And in doing this, you're preparing, because ultimately, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. But truth be told, the landing stage eventually arrives. So if you do not prepare for it, it can turn out to be very, very tricky. I've had scenarios, you must have had scenarios of guys who are retired and they still held up on the keys of the offices, and they actually jammed to even go home, because one of the key pointers is that they didn't prepare for that landing stage, and they don't see anything that they have to do at home or to relate with at home, and they find it so strange. So they can't believe that they are leaving the offices that they are holding. You've had scenarios, you saw some video of UBC CEO, and a few guys who cannot accept, who cannot believe that, they can actually reach a moment and they have to retire. So people live. It's true that people live, if not physically and emotionally connected, when they feel not in touch with the reality and themselves. So as you're in those 4 stages that I defined, as you're launching and then you lay out, and in flight success up there, you tend to actually lose people. And in losing people, you could even lose your people in your household. So when it comes to the time for landing, it becomes very cumbersome to connect with them at an emotional level, at the physical level. So it's important that you pick interest in their aspirations, pick interest in their work. If it's children, pick interest in their businesses, so that at the landing stage, you can actually ably relate with them at both a physical level and emotional level. And then your landing will be successful. So that's what I had on my heart to share with us. I know we have experts in the house, especially in family or in marriage, that could add a few pointers here and there, but I found these 4 points very, very outstanding and very helpful to bring along as we succeed in our businesses, as we succeed in our corporate life. So I'd like to open up the forum for any questions, or supplements on this conversation. As you may know, I'm the moderator as well as the presenter. So you just raise up your hand or put forward any comment that you have. Thank you. And if you continue to keep silent, I'll have to roll a stone on someone, even if it's not a Friday. So since I'm the chairman, I want to pick on Director Grace to add on a few words, 1 or 2. And then we roll it in that area until our time is fully spent. Today is a public holiday, so we have to roll it over. Director, speak to us.
Morning, Investor Jonan. Good to see you.
Pleasure.
No, today you're the chairman, you're the everything. You're ministering to people who are still in bed. They are horizontal. When they agree with you, they just move their toes. But anyway, my thinking was comment about a transition from one stage to another, and how can one know that they have moved from one stage to another, and is it possible that they could get stuck in the middle there? Yeah. Yes, sir.
All right, thank you so much. So thank you, Director Grace. So we can transition from one stage to the other based on the stages, the 4 stages I've highlighted. I could launch at a particular level. I'll give an example of my work. I left campus and I volunteered at UNBS. So when I volunteered, after a few months, 6 months actually, I was integrated as a worker. So in that case, I transitioned from volunteering to the full-time worker. So meaning that if I was not earning, I was actually starting to earn. So the trick starts right there, because then if I had an excuse to my spouse that, today we shall not do CJ because it's not moving well, now I somehow had limited excuses. Now it could be concerning us, and you actually have a job or your business has peaked, but you're still crying as if you're at the launching stage. Your spouse tells you know what, I need ABCD, when you even have the capacity to provide, but you still say, you know what, I'm not able to. It's a very, very, very common trait. So the person does not see the difference between the launching and actually you transitioning to a layover stage. So it's important to notice that, you know, I was at a particular level where I was not earning, but now I can earn. So meaning that the excuses that I gave at my launching stage should not be the very excuses that I'm giving at the layover stage. And then when I'm at the layover stage, there are some things probably I was not able to afford to my spouse or to my siblings or to my children. At the layover stage, probably my children wanted to attain a particular level of education in a particular school. Yes, they qualified, but I was not able to actually afford the tuition. I say, you know what, let's negotiate and go to a moderate school. It could be that they wanted to maybe get some entertainment somewhere where it was a little expensive, or live in their own home. And yet at that level, I was still at the layover stage. I could only provide for the basics and probably pay rent. But when I transitioned from layover stage to in-flight stage or in-flight success stage, now I can ably afford. Some of those things are no longer as very bothersome on my end. I have the money that is required. I have what it takes. So it's important to appreciate the stage we are at, both if we are on the end of the spouse who is in the background or at the front line, or the actual people experiencing the success. Because it's a very common thing that even when you've attained the success, you still can have the excuse which you should have written off. So at that level, it's important to know whichever stage you transition from, as you assume another stage, to know some excuses that you actually have to do away with, right off literally. If you're at a flight success stage, I gave an example of the VP. I do not think that there should be an excuse that you should be giving at that level, or like Judge Catherine Bamgemerere that you should be giving at that level. Then it will be a problem, because you know someone worked with you when she really understands, or he really understands the levels you are at. You transitioned in their front. Now you've attained it. You need to enjoy the success with them. There is no more excuse. And this will help you at the landing stage, because at the landing stage, you might not be as disposable, you may not be as energetic, and probably you might not have the much funds that you actually had at the in-flight success. And most of the time, it's when you need them most. So that's when you can actually notice. You can notice in terms of incomes that you get, you can notice in terms of time, because at the launching stage, I used not to get tired. I'd work like from 7 to 6. Not that they wanted me to work that long, but I used not to get tired. And in any case, I didn't have much to do outside work, because as a single guy, staying alone, and I had plenty of time. I also wanted to appease to my employers that, you know what, I am able, I am employable. So as I transitioned to layover stage, I started gaining some supervisory roles, meaning that now the time at work slightly reduced. Now I could work from 8:30 to 5. Now I could spend a few hours in the evening to catch up with my spouse to be, or do some dating and all. And this also speaks to people who are still searching and looking forward to their loved ones transitioning to another level. Now you have plenty of time. You've transitioned from officer level to a supervisor. You cannot start telling me that you're working from 7 to 6 or 7 in the night, like you used to when you're a junior officer. Now that you're a manager, you have transitioned. Now you have plenty of time that you can actually accord to your family, or your spouse, or your children, or your loved one that you're in relation with. So it's important. You can have catch-up time. Yeah? You can now afford to catch some ice cream, catch some movie with your loved one, probably because you don't work over the weekend. You've transitioned to a CEO. Now you even have allowance, because in some institutions, the allowance is for entertainment, because they assume that the level you've attained of a CEO, you need to entertain guests. you need to, in your home or anywhere, so their weekly allowances, sometimes 4 million, sometimes 3 million per week, because they assume at that level, you need to associate with a particular kind of people. They need to be entertained, they need to eat, they need to enjoy, because you're relating a building social capital. So you cannot afford to write off Valentine's because you're now a business leader and you're making some money from your business. So I hope it speaks to the question that Director highlighted. I'll invite any more supplements or any other question. Yes, I see some comments. Moses is asking, what can one do when they have lost a lot of time through the years and has lost connections with family? How can one catch up with the stages? Yes, a key thing I can highlight on this, I don't believe that it's usually not as too late to remake. It is not usually too late to remake, especially with family, because family is family, and somehow they tend to understand, unless it has gone too bitter that you actually, because this is what partly informs divorce, because you're emotionally and physically not invested in your spouse, it can turn out to be bad, unless it has gotten to that stage. But if it hasn't, I think it's usually not as late to catch up. And in catching up, I'll highlight the third, I think it is a second point, which I highlighted, you picking interest in what they do. You start loving what they do. If they play some game, you start learning it, you start enjoying their game, then you'll connect with them at a physical level, then emotional level, then you can actually get on the same page. That's how you can actually catch up with the stages. So pick interest in what they do, and then you can actually gradually be in their circle, be in their area, and before you know it, you can actually connect with family very well. I have a comment from John Mwesigwa, engineer. Catching up, Chokaja Chairman Jonan. Yes, catching up. You can no longer write off Valentine's Day. Yeah, it's no longer a write-off. Now you have plenty of time. I'll give opportunity as we close this session to Rita for a question or comment, and then Chairman CD. In that order. Rita.
Yes, good morning. Yes, hello, this is Rita.
Yes.
I was wondering, what if you find you're at that stage where they resist you, that change, the transition? Like now, as formerly employed, I'm giving you examples. And then you're giving support to your family because you had an income, you had a salary, but now you're going to business and you cannot be as helpful. And then they are just generally against the business. They're just generally they are just too negative because you don't give us support. Like now, most of my friends complain that I cannot go with them for those birthdays because I'm now looking at a business. How do you keep such friendships and such connections when you have a vision and the people you're trying to move with, tag with, are resisting it so badly? Even from your own family, like they resist everything. You're like, I'm going to Zanzibar, why do you stay there that long? Did you come from Uganda? Things like that. So how do you manage to keep up with such people? And yet you also have your own vision you're looking at.
I hear you. Thank you so much, Rita. It's a heavy question, and I'll perhaps later on invite Grace to speak to it as well, Director Grace. Yes, the comment I can give at that is that for friends, it is okay. I think there are some friends that you make at the launching stage that you might not sustainably maintain as you transition to another level. Because now your interests have changed, your levels have a bit changed, and if they don't step up, it's unfortunate, but it is a reality. You actually have to move on. So that's one word I can highlight. Two, for the family, it is a tricky one because you see, family is family, and still at the landing stage, you still need family. The key thing I can think about in the line of family is that it's important that you highlight, because you cannot afford to explain to everyone. Choose out the close family members or the close family members, explain what it is that you're doing and what it means for you and the stage you're at, and show them the vision that you have at hand, that ultimately you're going to land at the in-flight success stage, and then you can start to reconsider some of the aspirations that you have or some things that you are doing before the time you are still employed. Because now you're taking off, you're in business, you've left formal employment, you're now building the thing. I think it's a comment that I learned from Bitature. But if I dive in the well and I'm still struggling to support myself, it is not allowed to actually start supporting someone else. Because before I know it, I'm not only going to drown, but I'm also going to drown the guy that I'm trying to support. The same happens when you're taking a flight. You know, when you're in those flights, what do they call them? Instructions. They tell you that before you support a child or put a mask on a child to get oxygen, first make sure you have a mask on your mouth. Secure yourself first, then you can now mask your children or your child. You can imagine it is that serious. First, make sure you secure yourself, then you can actually put a mask on your child. Because before you know it, both of you are going to lose oxygen and you're going to die. And that child will not have anyone to support them, or if they've died, it will be a double loss. So I think I can use that principle. First mask yourself, or first save yourself from drowning, then you can ably support your family members later on when you've reached a level that you intend to reach at. I hope it speaks to that. Probably Director Grace will speak to that as well. Chairman CD, how about you?
I think my question was similar to Rita's. So it was in relation to black tax, because our families are not just nucleus in Africa. It's a whole extended, even when you're doing well, your mother tells you your brother, your sister, then again, this cousin, you become like the chief. But I think you've tackled that with the example of the well and drowning, and also in the flight example when the things have gone wrong.
Absolutely. The one thing I can tell you is that you cannot guarantee that you keep at peace, because there are people who will not relate with your vision. You tell them something, you tell them what you're building, and they still not believe. And you cannot kill them at that. You cannot convince them as much because you've done your part. The only thing that you'll do is concentrate on your thing, and ultimately they'll come to appreciate the level that you have attained, and they will come to relate when you've reached the thing that you're actually envisioning to achieve. So unless there's any other comments, I'd like to call off this call. I think our time is fast spent. So I speak a blessing over us. I speak a blessing over the works of our hands. I speak a blessing in all our businesses. May the Lord cover us. May the Lord protect us. And may he guide us and connect us with the families, that he leads us through all the stages, connect us with the right people, even family members who are understanding and who are important, especially in our transitioning to other stages. We appreciate you, O Lord. We welcome you. We bless you. For in Jesus' name we pray and believe. Amina.